Oh, for the record, Jeff, what a perfect day. You wrote Gunslinger, which is another book that I love, The Remarkable, Improbable, Iconic Life of Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers signed today. As you talked about in your book, Aaron and Brett had their little agitation, I guess. What are your thoughts on Aaron staying in Green Bay and so forth?
I mean, I kind of agree with you. I think it's best for the Packers and best for football. I mean, I'm like a lot of people. I lost a lot of. I always had, when I was working on that Favre book, Rodgers was really weird. I first talked to him at a golf outing, and he said to arrange a time to talk, and he said, "Just call so and so." He gave me the name of who to call, and he'll talk, and I'll definitely talk to you. And then I got blown off repeatedly, and then when the book came out, Aaron complained about the book, which I tried to talk to him about, but he blew me off. So my feelings about Aaron Rodgers are always a little mixed, but obviously he's a great quarterback.
Yeah. So let's get into this. The book was called Showtime. By the way, you can still order it on Amazon. It's fascinating. And now Adam McKay is a very clever director. He's decided, I'm going to make this. And it's funny because when you write a book and then somebody does a movie about it, a lot of times the writers are like, I don't know. So let's start with this. Your interpretation of what you've seen so far, is it pretty accurate?
Yeah, but it's entertainment. Like people say to me, I've seen all 10 episodes. The first episode came out a few days ago. And people would say, did this happen exactly like that? And I always say, no, basically no, because it's entertainment. And it's based on the book. They're very loyal to the book. They're definitely loyal to the time period. But it's not the same thing as a documentary.
Right.
It is entertainment.
Yeah.
So you have to keep in mind that there are stretches and there are exaggerations. And some of the main characters are sort of stretched out a bit, and that just kind of comes with a non-documentary look at a period.
So, Jerry West is one of the most, not only iconic figures, but Jerry's one of the really smart personnel people in the history of the league. But as you know, personnel is a mixed bag. Belichick can't draft a receiver to save his life. Right. So Jerry West, the Lakers there was Sidney Moncrief, who I watched. He was a great player at Arkansas. And then there was Magic Johnson, who you watched at Michigan State. How close did the Lakers get to drafting Moncrief over Magic?
Well, Jerry wanted Moncrief, period. Like wanted Sidney Moncrief. And the funny thing about it is I still maintain the Lakers with Sidney Moncrief have Kareem at center, Norm Nixon at point guard, Sidney Moncrief at shooting guard, Jamal Wilkes at small forward. Like that's a hell of a team, and that might even be a championship team.
Sure.
Like, am I wrong? Like that's a really good basketball team.
Yeah, that's a great team. Sidney was great.
Great. And so they can't – Jerry West, if we're just up to him, would have gone with Moncrief over Magic Johnson. He thought that, as they say in the series, he didn't know how a 6'9" point guard dribbling a ball this high up against, at the time, were point guards who tended to be around 6 feet tall, how that would go over.
Yeah. So
he fought for Moncrief. Ultimately, ownership wanted Magic. They thought the pizzazz and the salesmanship and everything about him would be more important. And I think you have to agree they probably made the right decision.
Yes. I mean, no player in the history of American sports has fit a city better than Magic fit Los Angeles. He literally, the name, the personality, the smile, and an entertainment base. Now, Jerry Buss, the legendary owner, was quite an interesting fellow. The gambler, a chemist, a little bit of a playboy. He and Magic, the relationship was very, very close, right?
Yeah. First of all, I wouldn't just say a little bit of a playboy. You might want to extend that a little, but it was like, it was kind of like father, son, but also like brother, brother. And they really had this kinship together. And Jerry Buss was an owner, kind of like Mark Cuban a little bit, where he wanted to roll with his players and he wanted to be part of it all. And he didn't view himself. He bought the team from Jack Kent Cooke. Jack Kent Cooke viewed his players in a way as possessions.
Yes.
And these are my possessions. These are my toys to play with. And Jerry Buss came in and he wanted to have fun and he wanted the experience to be all inclusive and immersive. And he saw Magic Johnson as this kind of kindred spirit, as a guy who would come to L.A., just as Jerry Buss had come to L.A. from Wyoming. He was coming to L.A. and he saw all the possibilities. So I think he viewed Magic very much as a brother-type figure.
It's interesting. L.A. is a city with a great deal of vanity. There's a lot of egos and a lot of money here. The winners get very, very rich. And you had Riley, who's a very smart guy, and West, and Phil Jackson. I mean, and then you have Magic and the stoic Kareem. When you watch Winning Time with Adam McKay directing this, and when you wrote the book, Is it a little surprising to you that it lasted as long as it did, considering all the strong personalities with those Magic and Buss and Riley, players and coaches?
I mean, if you look at the beginning of it, definitely it started. I mean, the rockiness of the beginning is often forgotten, and they actually do it well in the series. Jerry Buss's first coach hiring was Jerry Tarkanian, out of UNLV, and Tarkanian quit after his agent was murdered by mobsters in Vegas. He decided not to take the job.
That's right.
The second coach was Jack McKinney, who had been an assistant in Portland. He coached about 15 games. On an off day, goes to play tennis with his one assistant, Paul Westhead, flips over the handlebars of his bike, lands on his head, never coaches the Lakers again. The next coach, Paul Westhead, leads them to the finals. And a year and a half later, Magic basically goes to Jerry Buss and says, this is not working, which leads to Pat Riley. And I think the stability of Pat Riley and really the emphasis on unselfishness and the emphasis on team overall, and also having a guy like Kareem who for his different warts was an incredibly unselfish player. And also for Magic, for all the spotlight, was also an incredibly unselfish player. I just think they had the right pieces and the right guy running it.
It's fascinating. Kareem this sounds strange, is one of the most underrated great players ever because he was stoic. He wasn't flashy. He didn't care about the glamour. Like Michael Jordan was the best looking player, the most glamorous player. He leaned into everything. Kareem's unbelievable. Kareem was great for literally 18 years. I mean, he really, like LeBron, lasted forever. And it's fascinating because I go back to Jeff. This is so funny. There's this image that I can't get out of my mind with Magic and Kareem. It was very early in their relationship. And they won a big game, and Magic came over and hugged Kareem. And Kareem was like, what? Emotion. What is going on here? It's really a classic YouTube clip you could look up. Talk a little bit about Magic and Kareem. And Kareem was a very academic, very cerebral guy, but he bought into Magic pretty quickly.
Wait, so first of all, the funny thing is you actually got that memory almost 100% right, but it wasn't a big game. It was the first game of their time together. They beat the Clippers, the lowly San Diego Clippers.
Was it?
And Magic hugs him, and Kareem is like, we have 81 more of these, right? He literally said, we have 81 more of these, right? The thing that Magic did that was really smart coming in is he was incredibly deferential to Kareem, like incredibly so. And he always referred to him as Cap. He would never call him Kareem. It was always Cap. He knew his job was to get him the ball down low. He never complained to any of the coaches in those early seasons about this is slowing me down. We should be running more. Like he recognized the status of Kareem. And, Kareem was not into the whole like flash and dash of Magic Johnson. It wasn't his thing, but he really did appreciate, number one, a pass first point guard like Magic. And number two, just the selflessness of the guy, that he really was a guy who wanted to win. It wasn't about him. He wasn't a me player at all. So while they weren't hanging out off the court at all, like probably never, their relationship was a very good one.
Yeah, there's certainly a debate that it's the greatest team of all time. I mean, if you consider the brains upstairs, the engagement of the ownership, the unstoppable center, the greatest point guard of all time, it's just sometimes it's surprising to me. Brady Belichick lasted 20 years. It's so hard to last in these gigantic relationships. So when you watch Winning Time, is there a moment as you watch? You've watched all 10. The rest of us have to watch it in spurts. Is there a favorite episode or something that really makes you chuckle that you're proud of that you found out? By the way, you've done this 9 times and been a New York Times bestselling author. You're a legendary reporter, not just a writer. Is there a moment in this book that we're going to see on television that you're proud of that not everybody else knew about?
Yeah, well, in the first episode, there's this moment when Magic comes to the Forum for his first time to negotiate. And Jack Kent Cooke, the sort of outgoing owner, is there, and he still owns a team. And Jerry Buss is there. And they serve as a meal sand dabs. And I remember reporting this and having no idea what sand dabs were. It's a kind of seafood, knowing nothing about it. It sounds really dumb in a way, but like the moment when they lift the plates and the servers lift the plates and the sand dabs are placed in front of Magic Johnson, who's played by Quincy Isaiah beautifully. And that kind of look on his face, like, what the hell am I looking at? What is this? And when he says, because Magic, he served him all sand dabs, and he's like, Jack Kent Cooke is like, it's a delicacy. And Magic in real life said, can I just maybe get a hamburger? And the moment in the show where Magic says, "Can I maybe get a hamburger?" It just warmed my heart. It's like this moment where you're like, this wouldn't exist if I didn't report it. And I don't know, it's just like, it was a nice moment for me.
Listen, I grew up on the coast of Washington State. I've eaten seafood for 58 years. I don't know what a sand dab is. What is a sand dab? What is it?
I don't actually get the entirety of it. I've never had a sand dab.
I've
never had a sand dab.
Joy's had a sand dab. What is it?
Yeah, I think it's just like a kind of fish. I don't ask a whole lot of questions.
Did it go extinct? Because I haven't seen it recently on any menu.
No.
I looked the other day and I found a recipe online for sand dabs.
Well, congratulations, because I'm not even gonna Google it. The book is called Showtime. He also wrote Gunslinger. He also wrote Three Ring Circus, Kobe, Shaq film, The Crazy Years of Lakers Dynasty. I want to ask one question on that. Okay. In the last 9 years, the Lakers have had 7 losing seasons. We know this to be true, that second generation, third generation owned businesses can struggle, right? Like the matriarch or the patriarch hands it to somebody else and it's not always great. When you look at the Lakers' current state and you look at the Lakers, that book you write about, the Kobe, Shaq, Phil stuff, where did they go wrong? Or was it unavoidable, Jeff, because that was so big and so profound, it's almost like post-Jordan, post-Brady, that they were never going to be able to match it?
On the one hand, that's true. I also think, I don't know how much you've dealt with the Lakers. Like, I actually have always loved dealing with the Lakers, and Jeannie Buss is a joy, and Linda Rambis is a joy.
Yes.
Along the way, it's not quite the family business it used to be. And there used to be a real, like guys like John Black and Gary Vitti and all these staffers, they'd been there for 20, 30 years. And there was a real sense of ownership among the employees. It isn't just a team I work for, it is our team. I feel like some of that has been lost with the Lakers, where it feels a little more like a business and a little less like a family business. And I'm not saying necessarily that makes or breaks a franchise. I just know back in the day, players knew everyone who worked for the team. You'd walk Magic Johnson, Shaq, they'd go up into the front office. They'd know all the employees. Hey, Linda. Hey, Bob. Hey, Steve. They definitely don't have that same thing anymore. And maybe that's just the reality of modern America. But I do think something has changed with the Laker dynamic through the years.
Okay, the book is called Showtime. It was released in 2014. Still a wild read. Jeff Pearlman, 9 New York Times bestsellers. Also, he has a podcast called Two Writers Slinging Yang, a podcast. It's a writer's podcast, which is fun if you like reading, and I do. And and the HBO series is called Winning Time. I will say this, John C. Reilly, it looks in the trailers and stuff, it's like, boy, they hired the right guy to play Jerry Buss.
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
The guy who plays Magic, I agree with you on John C. Reilly. The guy who plays Magic, Quincy Isaiah, he was a center at Kalamazoo College. He weighs center in football, not basketball. He had to lose 80 pounds to play this role, and he's ridiculously good.
Jeff Pearlman. Great seeing you again. Congratulations on all your success.
All right, thank you so much for having me.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.